I'm Dr. Horace Huntley, the president of the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Today is July 24, 1997.
Will you appear on here too?
No, sir.
You just asked a question
Yes, sir.
and hear your voice.
That's right.
It.
Yes. Okay. Well, I want to thank you, first of all, for taking time out of your schedule and coming all the way from Atlanta to sit and talk with us today about the movement and about you.
Well, you haven't got my bill yet.
So that will be coming in the mail, right? Yes, sir. I would just like to start by asking you some general questions about your background. Where are you from, Reverend Cross?
I was born in Haynes, Arkansas, Haynes.
And how many siblings did you have? Brothers and sisters?
I had 4 brothers and 2 sisters.
So there were 7 of you?
7 of us.
And where did you fit? Were you the oldest?
I'm the baby.
You're the baby, okay. And were your parents both from Haynes, Arkansas?
They from that general location.
General area. What type of work did they do?
Well, my father was a riding boss. That was the title they gave him for his job.
Mm-hmm.
He was a supervisor of the day hands that worked for the plantation owner.
Okay.
And various assignments he would have to go out and do different things on the plantation.
Right.
That was not a part of the sharecropper's responsibility.
Okay. So he was sort of the manager
Right.
of the workers on the plantation.
Of the day hand.
Of the day hand.
Right.
Okay. And what did your mother do? What kind of work did she do?
She did laundry for the plantation owner and whoever else she could find the time to do it for.
Right. What about their educational backgrounds? Did either of them attend school, formal school?
I think high school was about as far as either of them went.
I see. Now, what kind of town was Haynes, Arkansas? As you grew up, do you remember when you started first grade?
Oh yeah, I started school before I was even old enough to begin. My older sisters would take me to school sometime, and that was on special occasion.
Yes, sir.
And I got to know the principal and several of the teachers. So that broke me in. So when I did enter, it wasn't strange for me.
You were sort of ahead of the game.
Right.
And an old timer almost when you started. What was school like in Haynes, those first days of your schooling?
It was about the same routine as it is now. You know, you're getting your assignments out and from one to another, you know.
Yeah.
Now, you can imagine a one-room school in a church building.
Right.
With 8 grades, that the teacher had to listen to your assignments.
And you had one teacher teaching 8 grades.
One teacher.
And how many students, approximately?
About 75 or 100, somewhere.
In one room.
One room.
That must have been an
But
experience.
I was given some instruction by my predecessor who had taught. He was giving it up because he had a better paying job teaching in another school district. So he asked me, I had just gotten out of the Army, and he talked me into accepting. I said, well, I haven't been to college. I wouldn't. He goes, oh, we get you an emergency certificate.
Well, did you then, after you'd gone through Haynes, you went on to high school. Did you go to high school in Haynes?
No, only white high school.
So where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in Forest City, 8 miles north of Haynes.
I see. And what was that transition like, going from a small one-room elementary school Was your high school larger?
Oh, much larger. It was
What was
a
that
monstrosity of.
in comparison?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, but how did that feel going? Because now it's really like going to town to go to school, right?
Uh-huh.
What was that like?
It was quite a change. It brought about some feelings that you were overcome by space, room, a room for almost any need you had.
Right.
But I quickly made the transition satisfactorily,
Yes, sir.
making friends with the students.
Did you participate in any extracurricular activities?
Well, I tried to participate in one. There was a glee club that I wanted to become a member of because they would get engagements to go out and sing for some of these organizations.
Right.
And be fed a good meal in hotels, so I just wanted to try out for that. So, but I didn't make the trial.
Okay.
They assigned me to be a tenor, and I ended up singing baritone. Give me a baritone assignment. I ended up singing tenor. So the director said, "Well, you won't keep your voice in the same assignment we give you, so we can't use you. You're too flexible in the
Is that right?
vocal."
Was that a real disappointment?
It was a very big disappointment for me because I had looked forward to being in that group and enjoying some of the things that they enjoyed. But when I was turned down, it was like somebody had shot me. But I soon overcame it.
Yes. As we normally do with disappointment. Well, were there any individuals, teachers that you remember that stand out in your mind that would have had an impact upon you at that point? That time in your career, you were sort of laying foundation. Is there anybody that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, several of the teachers, the principal, who had a dual capacity as being principal and assistant superintendent throughout the county.
Okay.
But I don't know how he did his other job because I never missed him at our school. Dr. Charlie Stewart.
Charlie Stewart. Now you say he was assistant superintendent over the black schools. And how many schools were in the area?
Well, there were several. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but there were several. But you never missed him from the classroom.
Never missed him from Lincoln High.
I see.
He was always there.
Right.
He organized a group of students, male students, into a class called the Common Sense class. And that was one of the things that I can always remember him by. He always said to us, when you go seeking a job, when you have an interview, look the interviewer directly in the eye. Don't be looking off or down,
Right.
but eyeball contact. Said, try to do that. And he would have us to experiment with him, to talk to him and look him eyeball to eyeball.
And these were all males?
All male. And one of the teachers said one day in a group I was talking with, it was kind of on the cut against the principal. Whoever heard about it organize a common sense class. You can't teach a person common sense, you wrong with that.
Yeah.
I said, Professor Stewart can, no?
So you think that it was a successful venture?
Oh yeah, it helped me in later years when I went out seeking employment to look the person right in the eye that was talking to me. And when I finished, it taught you how to get dressed, put on your best clothes, shirt tail in, not hanging out and hair comb.
But did all of the boys that went to Lincoln High School go through that course?
You know, it was on a volunteer basis.
Volunteer basis.
And we had probably 25 or 30 boys who had volunteered for that. This was after class assignments.
I see.
And I don't think it was any credit you put on your
Right.
record.
Strictly voluntary.
Strictly volunteer.
For self-improvement.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do after high school?
After high school, I was called into the Army and spent just about 2 years, less 20 days.
Now, what was that experience like, going from Lincoln High School to the U.S. Army? Where did you go when you left Arkansas?
When I left Arkansas, I was inducted at Fort Robinson, Arkansas, and left the induction station, went to Louisiana for basic training. And after being there for several months, I was shipped to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, for overseas assignment. And guess I was in Camp Kilmer for probably about a week or 2 weeks, and we're having different training programs going on there. And surprisingly, when we got in Camp Kilmer, the ground was covered with snow. And I said to myself, I said, oh yeah, this is going to give us an opportunity to stay indoors and get some good sleeping hours. So I thought.
Did that happen?
Oh no, I found out that you don't lay up in the Army barracks because of the weather.
Yes.
You go rain or shine, sleet or snow, for whatever assignment you have for that day.
Were there other friends or classmates, or other persons that you knew from Arkansas that were inducted the same time that you were?
I had a classmate that he and I went for examination the same time. We were both juniors. And our class gave us a going-away party. I told him, I said, y'all don't know whether we're going to pass the examination or not.
You mean your class in high school?
In high school.
Is that right?
Yeah. I said, wait, so we can examine and then you can give us a, but all they want to give it before we went for examination. So both of us failed the examination. My classmate failed because he had a ligament cut in his left foot. And I failed because of being underweight. But they said, well, we'll call you back in about 10 months. And
this is after you finished this high school?
This was in the senior year when they called me back.
They did call you in the senior year. Did you finish that?
Oh yeah, they gave me what you call that?
The GED?
Delayed process.
Oh, I see. So that you
Exemption
could,
for a few months.
right? And then after graduations,
I reported.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then you went to New Jersey, and then you eventually went overseas, I assume.
Right.
Where did you go?
We went to board a ship there in New York, and I forget how many days we were on that ship, but it seemed like the journey would never end. And we went to Le Havre, France. And so when we got there were no trucks to meet us at the dock, so we just had to pick up our duffel bag and truck it along by foot.
And you walked?
We walked for several miles, and then the truck that met us at a certain point and got on the truck.
What kind of outfit were you in?
I was a general service engineer.
And what were your duties? What
Well,
were you trained to do?
I was trained to be a company clerk. I never had too much field work. And so after I was in the Army for several months, I introduced myself to the chaplain and told him I had been called minister and in the service I could run at the chapel. I'd be happy to do it. So he said, I need an assistant. So would you like to be my assistant? I said, well, I just been assigned out to regimental headquarters as regimental assistant clerk. I said, there's no way you can get me. I said, I'd be happy to make a change. He said, well, nobody turned the chaplain down. I'll come by your place tomorrow and put my request in, and we'll see what goes from there.
Now, when were you called to the ministry?
I was called when I was 16 years old. And so this was, when I went to the Army, that was 44.
So that was during the Second World War.
Right. So I was born in 1925, 44. I was 19 when I was inducted.
Right. So what was your experience like then in France? Then I assume then that when he made the request, then you did become his assistant, the chaplain's assistant.
Well, the bargain was like this, that I had to complete my basic training before I could go into his service. And but I was told to report to the chaplain's office that next morning, which I did, and worked for him for several months. And then they could start checking records. Found out I had completed my basic training. Then I had to go back, leave the chaplain's office and go back on the field for basic training.
In France?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Right. So the chaplain thought that was a kind of an underhand cut against him. I said, no, I said, if anything I'm supposed to have, I want to take it. So I said, but I can come down to the chaplain and do the work after hours.
What were your duties?
Just clerical work, typing, assisting him at different times.
Was the chaplain black or white?
He was black.
And where was he from? Do you remember?
He was from a little town in South Carolina, just before you cross over to North Carolina. I forget the name of the town he was from. But he was a Shaw graduate.
Okay.
A real nice young man.
So how long did you stay in France?
I was there for about 8 to 10 months.
And after you left France, where did you go?
I left France because of the breakdown in organizational structure, and my organization was being deactivated, and I was being assigned to another outfit and being shipped to the Southwest Pacific. And so otherwise I left the general service engineer and became an aviation engineer.
That's it.
Instead of building roads and bridges, building airstrips. But I never.
You were still in the clerical area.
Still in the clerical area.
Well, how did you compare your experience in France with that in the South Pacific?
Well, the experience in France was real unique. I was part of the H&S company, headquarters and service company. And I was asked if I could get a 3-day pass to go from, this was before I got out of Louisiana, to go from camp to a place where our state convention was being held. My pastor had told me that if I could show up there, that he'd have me examined for my ordination. And so when I explained this to my first sergeant, he told me to check with the captain of the company. And I checked with him and told him what the situation was. And he said, "Have you talked to Sergeant Smith, who was the first sergeant?" I said, "Yeah." He told me to talk to you. He said, "Well, you sure it won't be but 3 days?" I said, "Oh, I'll do 3 or less." So he approved of the pass, and I left camp and went to a place in Arkansas to meet with the convention, and they catechized me for my ordination, and I passed. There was one question that I missed, and I knew what the answer that they wanted me to give, but I gave the answer that I felt comfortable giving, which was wrong. And the question was, once in Christ, never out. They wanted to hear my feeling on that statement. Can you accept Christ and still lose out? And I said, sure, you accept him and still reject him the next day. But the Baptist Trinity, once in Christ, you're never out. That was the answer they wanted.
Yeah. And that was the one that you felt comfortable in.
You know, I feel comfortable giving that.
So when you then arrived in France, because you had gone through this process, that then sort of opened another door for you.
Sure.
And then when you left France and went to the South Pacific, were you still in that same capacity? Did you work with the...
Yeah, I'm still with the chaplain.
And how was the South Pacific different than France?
Well, the South Pacific, where we landed, was nicknamed as the God-forsaken island.
What island was it?
Okinawa.
Okinawa.
It's just a big barren place, you know. I had to go to the General Hospital once when I was there, and it was like it took for a week to get me there. It's such a huge island.
Did you see any action in either of the theaters?
I never saw any action, but I was in the action zone. So I had one battle stop because of the location of being near the fighting area. But I never got involved in any direct action.
Did you have the opportunity to meet any of the native people that lived either in the area that you went in France or in the South Pacific?
Oh yes.
What was that experience like?
Just like changing from night to day.
How?
As the people on Okinawa were kind of an outgoing kind of people. And some would come around the mess hall, and I was on KP duty one Sunday, and they were standing in line at the garbage can to collect whatever garbage we throw out. So rather than throw it in the garbage can, I just happened to put it in the bag and hand it to them like that. And the officer of the day saw me and told me, "No, don't do that. You get court-martialed for that." Said, "You throw it in the garbage can. If they get it out of there, it's not your responsibility. But if you hand it to them and something happened to them, then they can sue us, sue the heck out of us." Well, I thanked him for telling me, and I never Never had that live around there again.
What about the people in France? Did you find that
Well,
situation there?
The people in France revealed some things to us that, to me and to a lot of the soldiers, that was kind of a dark spot on some of the character of some superior officers. I met a gentleman there in a cafe once one day, and he asked me if he could join me at my table. I said, sure. So I could speak a very little French, and he could speak a very little English, but we were able to communicate. And he asked me, he said, you seem to be a very intelligent young man. He said, you're altogether different from what your officers going around in the neighborhood saying about you. When he said you, I was thinking, I said, what have you been saying about me? He said, oh, now you in Francais about the black soldiers. He said, y'all were ignorant. You were diseased. And you had tails, and for all our people to avoid you. Well, so when I told that to some of the troops in our company, later on, they just got excited. You know, these so-and-so people, that's our biggest problem, these officers. They'll keep their mouths shut. Things will be far better than they are. But I didn't let it upset me to try to get revenge or anything. But I just made sure that I kept my head high and stayed out of difficult situations so I wouldn't be accused of any violations of any kind.
What was the reception that black soldiers usually receive from French people, as well as from people in Okinawa? Were they pleasant? Did they seem to have accepted what they had been hearing from the white soldiers and the white officers? How did they receive it?
Well, this particular gentleman told me, he said, you're just the opposite of what your white officers have been portraying. And I said, well, I knew then why they were making those kind of arguments, because they didn't want any intermingling of the black soldiers with the native people in those villages. As long as they could keep that separation line, that was better for them.
Right.
And I don't know what makes a person take that kind of patriarchal approach, that they got to keep everything divided on one side or the other. But to people in France and Belgium, places I visited, they didn't listen to any of those cliches that they heard, because I had a friend, it was a royal family that ran a restaurant in Arlon, Belgium. That's where one of our companies I was in was stationed in Arlon. And this person that ran the restaurant, my off day, I would go by there and spend more or less 3/4 of the day. They had a daughter who was about my age, and she would be keeping the store during the hours when traffic was not heavy. She said to me one day, I was just beginning to grow whiskers. She said, you got a hair in a bump. I said, come on, let me pick it out. And And she came from behind the counter and got a stool and sat next to me. Then she said, now you turn around and lie your head back. And I picked that hair out of that bunk for you. So I did. And while I was with my head back, I heard the door slam and I raised my head in a horizontal position and saw 3 white soldiers leaving the door. And her response was, black soldiers no good.
Black soldiers no good.
No good.
When you then left the military, you went back to Arkansas.
Sure.
And what did you do? You went into you were offered a job.
Right.
Teaching. Is that right? Tell me about that experience.
Well, I felt that I was prepared to teach, but when they told me they could give me 2 years of credit for my Army experience, which would be helpful for me getting an emergency certificate, I was happy to accept it. I didn't even ask them how much they paid. It was only after a week or two of working I found out I was getting $90 a month. So that's a lot of work for $90.
How long did you remain there?
Just for 2 months.
2 months. And then what did you do after that?
July and August. And I was already seeking admission to college in the fall. And I thought about going to the University of Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and had been accepted. And a friend of mine who was a pastor's son, who'd been to college at Bishop College in Dallas, Texas. And when he found out I was going to Lincoln, he almost, we would drive along the highway, he almost just stopped the car and said, Lincoln. I said, do you know anything about Lincoln? I said, no, just the name. He said, well, that's not a co-educational school. He said, anybody been in the Army for 2 years, they don't need to get involved, same-sex kind of thing. You need a dual sexual experience. And he said, another thing about Lincoln, it's isolated from the city, 30 or 40 miles from the city, and you'd be separated from city churches. And it's been my experience that to get involved in the ministry, you need churches to give you that kind of experience. And so I kind of thought through what he was saying, and the next day I sent off an application to Virginia Union University and explained to them that my transcript would be sent so they wouldn't have to sit and write for it. I talked with the principal and asked him if he could forward it to the school. So within 2 weeks' time, they had sent me a letter accepting said they had gotten the transcript and they accepted me as a student, but they didn't have any accommodation on the campus. If I preferred to have a city dwelling, they could find me a room in the city, and when I show up on the campus, I'd get that information as to where I would be assigned. So that's how I went to school.
That's in Richmond,
Virginia.
Why did you decide on Virginia Union?
Well, this friend of mine had mentioned if he was going to school again, he would choose Virginia Union University because he had met so many Unionites and who were giving good account of themselves where they were.
That's it.
That had attracted him, that he said if he had a chance, he would go to Union. And he said, this is what I would recommend for you to do. And I said, well, that's what I'll do. And so I did. Ended up going to Virginia Union.
What did you major in?
Sociology and minor in history.
And how was that experience? Now you're now a man of the world. You've been in Europe. You've been in the Pacific. I'm assuming that most of the students were probably younger than you.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of experience was that for you?
It was a good experience, I guess, because I had always been kind of a kid to play with all the children in the neighborhood. And I had been where they were. And I knew the mindset of most children. So teaching to them, that meant I had to be positive with them. And whatever I said, I had to mean it and see that it was carried out. If assignments were given, I expected those assignments to be delivered back at the time they were requested to be delivered back. So you can be fair without being over considerate of being a student. But I really enjoyed it. The teaching. The superintendent asked me several times if I would want to stay, he could get me a permanent position with the school system. And he kept on swimming, I knew how to get him off my back. So I asked him, I said, tell you what, you've been begging me to stay on. I said, if I stay on, will you equalize my salary for all the other teachers here in the system? Well, he made his mistake was to send me over to the White High School to pick up my check one month. And while I was there, while the principal was looking for it in the check, little box with the checks over there, I was looking over his shoulder, reading every one that he picked up until he got to mine. And they were all several $100, and finally got to my $90, he pulled it out. So I said to the principal, if you equalize my salary with the other teachers, I might give some consideration to stay in. And that was the end of the subject.
You didn't have any more difficulty.
He didn't ask me anymore whether he could do it or couldn't, or would try to do it. He didn't make no statement.
Were your salary equal to the black teachers in the district?
Well, this is a all white high school, so I don't even know what the blacks were making.
But the checks that you saw were those from
that particular school.
From that particular school. Okay, so you were asking for an equalization in black and white salaries.
Right.
So that would end the question. Yes.
Yeah, that just cut the conversation off right there.
Now at Virginia Union, you are now living in Richmond, which is a large city. And I guess this is probably the first time now that you've lived in a city this size.
Indeed you are.
What was that experience like? Now, I'm assuming that by your living in the city, you are an ordained minister, that you have a relationship with churches in the area.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? Being a college student as well as...
It was a good experience. In fact, the Army experience helped to prepare me for my college experience. I'm glad I didn't have that Army training before I went to college, because I was a little more mature and could accept things more readily than if I had been much younger. But I was given a lot of opportunities at college, extracurricular activities. Joined an intercollegiate college group of students from Virginia Union and the Union Theological Seminary and the girls' school there at the seminary. So we formed this mutual alliance to meet on a monthly basis, interact with each other, see how well we were adjusting to college life and meeting the needs that were set for us. So that was an innocent group.
Did you pastor in Richmond while you were there, while you were in school?
Not in my, I accepted a church in my senior year in school. And it was some 60 or 70 miles from Richmond, closer to the Marine base in Quantico.
Now you were not married at this point.
No.
Did you meet your wife in college?
I met her in college, in my junior year in college.
And your children were born in Richmond.
In Richmond, right.
What point did you come to Birmingham? How did Birmingham come into this mix?
Well, I was pastor of this small church in a residential area there, Richmond, part of Chesterfield County. And I had done what I felt I could do there. And when you get in a state like that, you don't want to give up your ministry. So the best thing for me that I felt I needed to do was to seek a church that could be more or less acceptable to my style of leadership. And so I made all overtures that I could to see what was vacant in certain cities. And I met a friend who had submitted my name to one of the members of the pulpit committee at 16th Street. They met at a convention, and this person was having to ask my friend if he knew any ministers that was looking for a church. He said, well, yeah, I know a man, I can recommend to you. And he gave them my name, and they wrote to me and said they had received my name as a person that was interested in making a pastoral move, and asked me if I was still interested to send them a resume and do a credo sheet, one that I had already done for my in the seminary. So I mailed them that information and then gave them 2 dates that I could come and preach. They asked for 2 dates, so if one wouldn't please them, they choose the other.
Right.
And they gave me a date to come, and so I went down and spoke and delivered what I thought was my best sermon that I had in my portfolio.
And you had attended Union Theological Seminary?
Virginia Union.
Virginia Union, okay. Now, what year were you called here then?
In 1962.
In 62. Were you coming here as pastor, assistant pastor? You were coming as pastor at that point?
To Birmingham?
Yes, sir.
As pastor.
As pastor. Now, coming from Virginia to Birmingham, and Birmingham having the reputation that it has as far as race is concerned, did you have any doubts in your mind about accepting this position?
None whatsoever, because Richmond was just about as bad. Schools were segregated there, just like they were here. And I had worked with the SNCC organization there.
So you had worked with SNCC in Richmond?
In Richmond. We had students there had tried to open up the downtown shopping center at Miller Roads and Tall Houses, particularly the 2 largest stores in downtown. And they had gone to the lunch counter to sit down to request service. And the waitress refused to wait on them, and they sat there patiently. Finally, the manager told them that they couldn't be served, they'd have to leave, and they refused to leave. And he suggested that if you don't leave, we'll have to call the police. So they still refused to leave. The police was called and came and were arrested. So this created kind of a furor for the Virginia Union students being arrested downtown. And then an organization got formed to come to their support with money to bail them out. And,
Were you a part of that organization at the time that you were, or were you one of those that were demonstrating?
I was one of those who demonstrated. I was pastor of the church too, and so certain days of the week they had ministers picketing. Another day they had lawyers and doctors, trying to divide it up like that. So I chose Tuesday and Thursday to picket.
Were you ever arrested?
Never was arrested. So I never did get involved in direct action movement, such as if a truck was being driven, you're going to stand in the way of a truck or a bus.
But you did demonstrate.
Yeah.
But the groups that you demonstrated with were never arrested.
No, we never were arrested.
So when you then, this is, I'm assuming is in 1960, 61 or so. So when you then get the call to come to 16th Street, you were already familiar. You were sort of a veteran of demonstrations.
Well, I had quite a number of hours credit in that regard.
Right. So what was it like then making that move from Richmond to Birmingham to 16th Street Baptist Church?
Well, it was a move that was hard for me to make, because I had a good church, getting along well with them, and they were not wanting you to do nothing groups. They were always ready to take action and whatever I recommended. And so I had left a rural church to accept this church there in Richmond.
How large a church was it?
It had a membership of 300. And that was large considering to the church that I had a membership of about 150 in the rural area. So I was looking for the challenge of giving myself to full-time ministry. And I felt 16th Street would give me that opportunity and provide a house for the family to live in and a livable salary. So those were some of the considerations that I...
In Richmond, you were not full-time pastor.
No.
What kind of work did you do?
It was a full-time pastorate as such, but people expect of a pastor.
Right.
Services every Sunday and visiting the sick and shut in, attending meetings, that kind of thing. So I was doing all those things. So I was still full-time, but just they had a part-time pay period. So I never will forget once we had a deacons meeting at that church, and chairman of the board opened up the meeting that night on me. I was the agenda that night. After the opening prayer and everything, and he said, Pastor said, we've been getting a lot of complaints that you're not visiting the sick members in our congregation. I said, well, I don't know where you get your information from, but I said, anybody sick in this congregation, I said, I give priority visitation to my sick members. I said, but now I don't make a habit of going around visiting people in their homes unless I know that the husband or some of the children will be there during the day. And But I just figured he had something, somebody had said to him that I hadn't been by to visit them. And so I just happened to mention to him, I said, now, we have on our bulletin each Sunday, my phone number and address, and have a statement in there, anybody that's sick, please call the pastor, or call your deacon. We had deacons visit that district, you know. And I said, now, I haven't gotten any calls on anybody that I know that's sick now, other than regular shut-ins. I said, no. But I said, if you know of anybody, and I said, who was the individual that said I was visiting the sick? I said, who's some of the people that I refused to visit? He wouldn't give me that information. So I said to him, it was a good thing he brought it up because he gave me an opportunity to bring a lot of things before the deacons that they hadn't even considered. I said to him, well, you know, I have limited time that I can give to the church because I work a full-time job just like you do. And so one of the deacons said, well, but we call you as a full-time pastor. I said, yes, you did too, but you give me part-time pay. And then he asked a question that I couldn't have asked any better. He said, well, what is a full-time pastor supposed to receive? I said, I'm glad you asked that question. So I just laid the book out. 1, 2, 3 question. And I said, I don't get this, I don't get this, I don't get this. And so the chairman said, yeah, but Pastor, these are some things that you have to stay here and earn. You can't just expect to receive those just coming in. I said, no, these are things that the church should supposed to have for the pastor as soon as he signed up to come. And I said, I don't get any of this. I said, and I can't live on support my family on what y'all paying me, so I have to work another job.
What job did you work? What did you do?
I was cardiac assistant, working with a cardiac surgeon at a hospital in Richmond, where we did open heart surgery. And my job was to prepare the pump, get it ready for the operation, and be on the floor around the table to see that blood was supplied to the pump when it was requested, and samples were taken and carried to the lab for examination, and then clean the pump up after surgery. I said that was my job, and so the days we would have surgery, I'd have to report on the job around 5 o'clock that morning, because the machine that they used had to be, it was a gas sterilizer, because a lot of the equipment could take heat, and gas sterilizing was the best thing they could do to make sure they were in proper cleanliness. And to get all that gas out of those channels, had a pump on the compressor. You pump it down below 0 and cut it off, and let the indicator come back up to 0 and start rising again, showing you how much gas was in there. And you pump it down again, go through the same procedure until when it would go past above 0.
So you know you don't have any gas in it.
And when it stopped at 0, you knew then it was ready to assemble and be put on the operating room table, carried to the operating room.
So you arrived then here in Birmingham in 1962.
Correct.
What month did you?
It was in May.
May of '62. Okay, this is just sort of preceding well, there are things that are happening in Birmingham at the time. The Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights has been very active.
Oh, yeah, they're still active.
Had a students of Miles College in '62 developed a selective buying campaign downtown Birmingham. So you were coming into the situation that was rather active. What was your role? Did you get involved at that particular point?
Well, the church elected me in January of '62. I had preached here in December. And when they had that meeting in January, I was called as a pastor. And the night I received the call, I got a telephone call from the chairman of the pulpit committee, letting me know that the church had called me as a pastor. And they had just had a bombing of the Freedom Riders bus in Anniston a day or two before that. And he was saying to me, don't let that stop me from wanting to come to Birmingham because Birmingham wasn't as bad as it was up there in Anniston. I said, no, that's more of an indication to make me want to come more. I said, it hasn't dampened my spirit one bit.
So that, in fact, was uppermost in your mind as you decided to
Because I think I attended one of the meetings the first week I was here. And from that initial meeting, I was given a position on the what's the name of that committee? Strategy committee. For this, made all the plans
for the movement, the Alabama Christian Movement.
Right. So it was at that time Dr. King had been invited to bring SCLC in to give leadership to the local movement. And so this was a week or so after I was here that Dr. King came here with his staff and had a meeting, a cross-section meeting with the leaders here in the black community, teachers, doctors, lawyers, school teachers.
What was your relationship with Fred Charlesworth?
Other than working in the movement, we had no relationship. Because I didn't know I was going to get involved so soon. Because first night I attended a meeting, they were telling me about the difficulty they were having getting places to meet, and were wondering if they could meet at 16th Street Church some. Well, I just felt that every church would voluntarily give them that permission. And I said, sure, we'd be happy to have you. So they scheduled the next meeting.
What did your deacon board say when they scheduled the meeting for 16th Street?
I could have gotten in a little trouble at that point, but they let me know they had a committee at the church that supervised the lending of the church out to different organizations to keep down any conflict. And I said, well, they needed to know that night. And I said, I felt being pastor, I had that authority to give them permission to meet. And that was the way we dealt with it every time.
So you did have the authority, and you took the authority to allow the movement to have meetings at 16th Street. Because prior to then, meetings were not held at 16th Street.
Well, that's what I soon found out. I soon found that out. They felt that there were a lot of churches were willing to let the movement meet there, but they weren't large enough to accommodate the crowd.
Right.
In fact, 16th Street was too large for a while until the momentum built up to a peak. And then the balcony was overflowing at times.
What's your most memorable occurrence during that first year or so of your involvement with 16th Street and the movement?
Well, First thing I saw was that we were in a meeting one day, and this was when Dr. King had decided to start inviting the children in. And so the building was packed, and the police, fire department, and several high representatives of the police department came and wanted to speak to me. So I was in the study. He came in and was asking if I couldn't dismiss the meeting because they were breaking fire regulations, and that creates some problems. So I said, well, tell me what regulation, and we can make sure that we obey those regulations. I said, well, now this is not my meeting. I said, I'm giving them permission to meet here. And I said, well, if there are regulations that are being ignored, I said, we need to know so we can announce to stay away from certain areas, open areas. And so I said, it's not. So this captain just pleaded with me and said, "Look, you the pastor here, you can call this meeting off right now." I said, "No, it's not my meeting. I can't call it off." I said, "Dr. King is the only one that can call this meeting off." And so I refused to do it. But we got a lot of calls from the police that they had received calls that some bombs had been planted in the church, and they wanted us to dismiss our group so they could search the church. This was on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
So
did that happen? There were bomb threats prior to the actual bombing in September '63, where you actually had to let people vacate the building and the police come in to check the building? That's
correct. We had a couple of those. And on each of those occasions, nothing was found. And by getting people upset like that, we didn't even ask them to come back. When we left out, we gave the benediction. That was it for that day. And now the offering had been taken. It happened just before time to preach.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know whether it was just one of those situations to harass us and make us get a little jittery, or what it was. But
the day of the bombing, where the 4 children lost their lives, did you have a threat at all?
None that I know about receiving. That was a call.
Were you in the building that morning?
Yes, I was in the building. I had left the study about 15 minutes before this happened, and went and sat in the women's Bible class that met on the 16th Street side of the building. And I sat in that class that morning. And it was a wonderful lesson too, a love that forgives. Some people say they have love, but they're not willing to forgive.
So you were in that class in the bomb actually wrong?
Correct.
Well, can you explain what that was like?
Well, it was an experience that I couldn't believe it was a bomb at first. We've been having a little difficulty with our hot water heater in the kitchen area below us. And I thought it was the tank had exploded down there. But within a few seconds, I didn't smell gas fumes, I smelled powder fumes. And immediately I recognized it wasn't the hot water heater that blew up. It was a bomb or something. Well, and I jumped up and started telling them, let's clear the building right away, let's get out. Then I started to run downstairs to check on the children below to see if they had gotten trapped in the rooms or anything. And I crisscrossed it from that one side of the other, going room after room. And I didn't see a single person within any room. And so then I left out and went on outside. When I got outside, I saw ambulances, people in there, and they were loading others in, taking them to the hospital. And so then one of the civil defense workers came up to me and told me there was a big hole around the east side of the church, wanted me to come and look at it. And I said, let me get bullhorn, and I want to try to calm the crowd down, because they were getting unruly. So I began trying to pick up bricks to throw at the police.
A large crowd had gathered.
Yeah, and it was making him almost impossible to do anything constructive because of the crowd jamming in, and making threats against the police. If not threats, and verbally abusing them, accusing them. Yeah, they know who did it. We can get even with them. I said, well, we don't know who did it. And so I got on the bullhorn and started telling people the best thing that they could do was to vacate the premise, give the police and the person working to clear things up room to work. And so whoever did this, they'll be brought to justice. And so then I went around to look in the hole that was in the east side of the church. And all I had to do was just bend over slightly. You could walk right in. So one of the defense workers said to me, he said, don't go in there, Reverend. Said, maybe another bomb may go off. This was a standard procedure that they'd have a blast to kind of draw the crowd, right, and another blast to go off once the crowd got there. And that kept ringing in my ears that may be what they had expected to happen that day. That they were setting one to draw it and another one to damage it. But when they told me not to go in there, because that might be, and I said, no, I must go in there. I said, that body is in here, we want to find them. So my bravery gave them more courage to come in. And we saw this rump of debris there, and they started digging down in there. And less than 2 feet down, we saw a body. Took that one out, brought a stretcher in, dug down a little more, and so they were all on top of each other as if they had hugged each other, got blown together. I didn't know any of them at the time, because the way that explosion had.
Couldn't recognize them.
They looked much older than they were. And when we got to the mall, a lot of them had to be identified by the clothing that they were wearing, or a ring, or a watch, or something of that kind. As soon as we got those 4 bodies out, the first body was taken out through the crater. But the crowd was so massive down there, we realized that the others needed to be taken out on the opposite side. So we took them out on the west side of the church building, and then put them in the ambulance on that side. And just as we got the last body out, we heard what appeared to be moaning and groaning back in the toilet stalls. And we went back there, and that was Addie Mae Collins, not Addie Mae, Sarah, and his sister. But I didn't recognize who she was at the time, so the blood was streaming down her cheek. And she just seemed incoherent. But she said she wasn't growing, she was calling her sister, Addie Mae. And I said, sound like you were growing. That's the only I. She said, no, I wasn't growing, I was calling Addie. Where you Addie? So we got her out and took her down and hospitalized her and kept her in several weeks. Gave her artificial eye and kept close treatment on her. In and out of the hospital for several weeks. But there were other people that were injured, minor injuries. Another passerby was injured. He was walking along that side of the church that morning, wasn't even coming to church. And when that blast occurred, it just broke his right arm. He was traveling south on 16th Street. He got an arm fractured from it. He was lucky, his head wasn't going off.
It was right there near the where the blast took place.
I think he had passed that blast area. He was up there near the front of the church where the bulletin board is. But it was quite a day that will never be forgotten by this church or by the nation.
Well, we've covered an awful lot of territory today. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we conclude?
Well, I'm just happy that after 14 years of waiting for justice to be done, it broke through, and one individual was arrested, Robert Chandler, and found guilty of being the perpetrator of that murder. He was only charged with the murder of one of the children. And I guess that was designed so that they didn't get him on one, they could charge him for the others. And he was given a life imprisonment sentence. And I was told at that time that there were others sitting down in the courtroom who were equally as guilty as Robert Chandler. And they would be brought to trial as soon as they could find the proper evidence to convict them. But many years have gone by since 1974. And finally there's a redoing, another reopening of the case to try others. And I've been called by several reporters, what was my feeling about this? Since it's been so long, how could this make us feel any better? I said, as long as we know that there are persons out there who are guilty of committing this atrocity, we can never sleep comfortably at night until they are brought to trial. And I said, I'm never one to try to cut off justice from being beat out. So I just hope that others can be convicted of this hideous crime.
Again, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come and sit and talk to me. You've been
Well,
very,
it's been a
very
pleasure,
helpful.
Dr. Hunter, and thank you for the invitation to come.
Thank you.